Be here is here, so I will call this meeting to order at 7:32 and a half p.m. Please all rise if you can for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for a moment of silence or silent prayer as your conscience finds appropriate. Thank you. Please be seated. Members of the council, hope everybody can hear me. Members of the council, you have before you an agenda. Are any amendments required to the agenda? And are there any conflicts of interest that any of you have for any agenda items?
I have none.
Assuming silence means no conflicts of interest and no changes, the one change that I would ask for is unless it changed, we don't have a correspondence summary, so we should just remove that from the agenda. So I will strike that. Try to strike that. Okay. Okay, may I please have a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
So moved.
Seconded.
Motion by Councilmember Enyang, seconded by Councilmember Fo to approve the agenda as amended. Are there any council comments on this motion? Are there any public comments on the motion to approve the agenda as amended? Hearing none, I'll do a roll call vote. Councilmember Smith,
Aye.
Councilmember Fo,
Aye.
Councilmember Lingua,
Aye.
Councilmember Enyang,
Aye.
Councilmember Calon is observing Ramadan and will not be joining us this evening. Councilmember Mejia.
Aye.
Yes, I did that out of order, but I was thinking about it. Motion passes 5-0. I abstain. Let's move on to the presentations. And the first presentation is in recognition of Arbor Day. Start with English. Proclamation 2024 Arbor Day. Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees. And whereas this holiday called Arbor Day was first observed for the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska. And whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world. And whereas trees can reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cut heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce life-giving oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees in our town increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community. And whereas the mayor and council commit to operations, programs, initiatives, legislation, and resources that support the town's tree canopy, therefore be it resolved that the town of Riverdale Park Mayor and Council do hereby proclaim April 26, 2024 as Arbor Day in the town of Riverdale Park and call upon everyone in our community to observe this day with appropriate programs, activities, and ceremonies. Y ahora en español, Proclamación Día del Árbol 2024, considerando que en 1872, J. Sterling Morton propuso a la Junta de Agricultura de Nebraska que se reservará un día especial para la plantación de árboles y considerando que esta festividad llamada Día de Árbol se observó por primera vez con la plantación de más de 1 millón de árboles en Nebraska y considerando que el Día de Árbol ahora se observa en todo el país y el mundo y considerando que los árboles pueden reducir la erosión de nuestra preciosa tierra vegetada por el viento y el agua, reducir los costos de calefacción y refrigeración, moderar la temperatura, limpiar el aire, producir oxígeno que da vida y proporcionar un hábitat para la vida silvestre. Y por cuanto los árboles en nuestra ciudad aumentan el valor de las propiedades, mejoran la vitalidad económica de áreas comerciales y embellecen nuestra comunidad. Y considerando que el alcalde y el consejo se comprometan con las operaciones, los programas, las iniciativas, la legislación y los recursos que apoyan la copa de los árboles del pueblo. Por tanto, se resuelve que el alcalde y el consejo de la ciudad de Riverdale Park proclaman por el presente el 26 de abril de 2024 como el Día de Árbol en la ciudad de Riverdale Park y exhortan a todos en nuestra comunidad a observar este día con programas, actividades y ceremonias apropiadas. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is proclamation designating April as Earth Month 2024. Proclamation in honor of Earth Month 2024. Whereas care for the earth is central to our survival, and whereas Earth Day has evolved from the 1970 teach-in on college campuses to 54 years of action involving 190 countries and more than 1 billion people, and whereas, despite ongoing efforts by many, the Earth remains in dire need of attention and action on the local, state, national, and international levels. And whereas there is a need to expand the local tree canopy, to improve water quality, to reduce waste and litter, and to educate each other on improving the environment. And whereas the town of Riverdale Park has established a vision and commitment to sustainability and has created a sustainability committee, which is comprised of active and dedicated volunteers focused on improving the local environment. And whereas the town of Riverdale Park has developed the Go Green initiative and associated grant programs, installed energy efficient features and fixtures on town buildings, and incorporates sustainable practices into its daily operations. And whereas highlighting April as Earth Month provides the necessary focus while advocating for Earth Day everyday action, now therefore be it resolved that the mayor and council of the town of Riverdale Park do hereby proclaim April as Earth Month and encourage all businesses, all residents, businesses, visitors, and employees to join with the Riverdale Park Sustainability Committee in taking action every day to improve our planet and to make our lives and the lives of future generations healthy and sustainable. Y ahora en español, proclamación, una proclamación en honor al mes de la Tierra 2024. Considerando que el cuidado de la tierra es fundamental para nuestra supervivencia y considerando el Día de la Tierra ha evolucionado desde la enseñanza del 1970 en los campus universitarios hasta 54 años de acción que involucran a 190 países y más de 1,000 millones de personas, y considerando que a pesar de los esfuerzos en curso de muchos, la Tierra sigue necesitando urgentemente atención y acción a nivel local, estatal, nacional e internacional, y considerando que es necesario expandir el dosel de los árboles locales, mejorar la calidad de agua, reducir los desechos y la basura y educar a los demás sobre cómo mejorar el medio ambiente. Y considerando que la ciudad de Riverdale Park ha establecido una visión y un compromiso con la sustentabilidad y ha creado un comité de sostenibilidad que está compuesto por voluntarios activos y dedicados enfocados en mejorar el medio ambiente local. Y considerando que la ciudad de Riverdale Park ha desarrollado la iniciativa Go Green y los programas de subvenciones asociadas, ha instalado características y accesorios de eficiencia energética en los edificios de la ciudad e incorporar prácticas sostenibles en sus operaciones diarias. Y considerando que destacar abril como el mes de la tierra proporciona el enfoque necesario al tiempo que aboga por la acción del Día de la Tierra todos los días. Ahora, por lo tanto, se resuelve que el alcalde y el consejo de la ciudad de Riverdale Park proclaman por la presente abril como el mes de la Tierra y alientan a todos los residentes, negocios, visitantes y empleados a unirse al Comité de Sostenibilidad de Riverdale Park para tomar acción todos los días para mejorar nuestro planeta y hacer que nuestras vidas y las de las generaciones futuras sean saludables y sostenibles. Muchas gracias. I look forward to signing both of those. That brings us to our third presentation, which is highlights of the fiscal year 2025 proposed operating and capital improvement budget.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. Whoever's controlling the screen, if you could stop sharing that for my introductory comments. So good evening, Mr. Mayor and council and the community. As I indicated in an email message to the council last week, staff have budgeted or have balanced both the proposed operating budget as well as the proposed capital improvement budget. This year, that was a little more difficult, and it was difficult for a variety of reasons, not just trying to make expenditures balance, but trying to find the right balance in growing the staff team in response to increased expectations, changing conditions. And so there's a lot in the mix. So I want to take a few minutes and just highlight what's in the budget. And then Mr. Jones is going to walk through some numbers. And then we are still assembling the book and doing some proofreading. As a matter of fact, after Mr. Jones presents his finance report later this evening, if there's no objection from the council, I'm going to ask that him and Mr. Smith leave so they can continue to work on the assembling. We took off yesterday, and so that slowed us down a little bit. So I think very importantly, the proposed operating and CIP budget will maintain our reserves well above the GFOA standard of 16.67, which is basically 2.5 months. We're going to come in probably right around 28.5%. I didn't do the calculation, but it's right about 28.5% of our operating budget. So we're under 30, but it's still well above the standard. The budget supports community engagement and transparency through the addition of a communications manager position and a part-time events position. It expands arts programming. It implements a curbside composting project. It would launch that program in January. It provides for a 2.5% cost of living increase for all staff and the continuation of the Merit Step program per the approved pay range plan. It continues assistance of grants to both residents and businesses. It continues the farmers market dollar program through December. We have not yet identified a grant to take over from that point, but we're still searching. It establishes aspirational projects. Projects now that we have a person concentrated on grants, projects that we will talk about, list separately as aspirational, and things that we're working on to gain funding for. And it's not just grants, but for the first time that I'm aware of, the town is pursuing earmarks. And we've submitted that paperwork to the various federal offices. It provides $316,000 in highway user funds for street projects. The CIP projects where we had to move some money around a few months ago in order to keep projects moving, it funds that $180,000 back into those projects. I mentioned the communications manager position and the part-time events position. But it also funds a community safety officer. It funds a new position of a finance manager. And it continues the funding of the ambassador positions to help keep the town clean and to help serve as outreach to the community. It expands the automated enforcement program, both speed and red light, and it implements a new parking program. It transfers in from our reserves $300,000 for a sidewalk project. It's a project that we've talked about before and we didn't have it funded completely. It puts $300,000 towards that, and that is the end of Queensbury alongside the elementary school to ensure a safer walk for the students and keep the pedestrian traffic separate from our public works yard. And it does include a proposed tax rate increase, not for the operating budget, but designed specifically to fund walk, bike, drive related capital improvement projects. The number that the staff are recommending is a 3.5 cent increase. And if that were to be approved, that would provide $351,000 a year towards walk, bike, drive specific CIP projects. In terms of how we balance the operating budget, I speak every year of having various levers that we can pull to find balance. We delayed the hiring of these various positions. So I just talked about adding these positions. And I believe these positions are needed. And I've told the councils over the years, I will never come to you and ask for a position unless I absolutely believe it's needed. And I believe these positions are needed, but we're delaying the hiring, the community safety officer till October, the communications manager till January, the finance manager till January. The events person, we would hire that part-time position at the first of the fiscal year in July. And knowing what the process is, and we're going through for the permanent appointment of the police chief, I've delayed appointing a deputy chief, filling that slot until October. So those are the delayed steps that are proposed to help balance the budget. We've also brought money over from the Health and Wellness Fund. And that's something that we've done several years, is to bring money in from the various funds that we deposit money into when we have extra dollars or when we receive a health premium rebate. We're also, and it's on the agenda tonight, a modest increase in the rental licensing fees for multifamily housing. Now we have revenue net operating expenditures, albeit less projected for this year than in previous years, but it does also rely on bringing some funds in from that. And then it relies on bringing in some ARPA dollars as well. And I think that will help us ensure timeliness. And lastly, it relies on the expansion of the automated enforcement programs. So those are the various levers that we pulled to get to a point where we could say to the mayor and council that we have a balanced budget. I believe that our projections remain conservative, and that will keep us protected, if you will. And the delayed actions of creating structural changes until later in the year provide the council an opportunity to, in their monthly updates on the finance conditions to reevaluate how's the revenue stream. Is the revenue stream strong enough to support that which we plan to implement either in October or in January? And I'll close my point by sharing a line I think I've written in every budget that since I've been here. Budgets are designed as the best calculated and strategic determinations that can be made given what is known at the time. So given what we know now, I believe that this approach is sustainable. And I believe we've been conservative enough in our projections that the town's not going to find itself in a bad way. Are there lots of questions? Yes. We have a triennial reassessment that's going to happen in the fall for new values on properties in July of 25. As the mayor may have seen in his emails at 6:30 this morning, we were also reminded by the state that several of our larger property owners have active appeals. Now, the constant yield notice we received that gives their best guess at the time, or I'm sorry, their best calculated and strategic determination at the time on what the values will be, they've tried to account for those appeals. But the state cautions us that Maryland Tax Court can weigh in and there could be further adjustments. So it's all about what we know at the time and our best determinations. So Mr. Jones is going to walk through some numbers so you can see the size of the budget, where we're recommending putting funds. I will give a little teaser. We are planning, or not planning, it's going to happen here in a few days. When the book is released, there's going to be an extra page per cost center that will help clarify where the changes are. So it's a whole significant change page. And we've heard from several council members saying, this is a big book. It's kind of hard to wrap your brain around the entire thing. And we agree with you. And so we're adding this page to say, in this area, there's no significant changes, or there are, and it's by this percent. And here's where it is, and here's why we're recommending this change. So that'll be divided out per each cost center. So before I ask Mr. Jones to walk through some numbers, and he's going to stay pretty high level tonight, may I ask if there's any questions, Mr. Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Town Manager. Council, are there questions? Councilmember Smith, go ahead.
Thank you. Oh, sorry. I was lubricating my tattoo. Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Town Manager and staff, for all the work that you guys put into this budget that we'll see soon. And, you know, the work that you always do. As we talk about both often and not enough in this forum, we are incredibly blessed to have the staff that we do to put the work into this. And I particularly am glad to hear about that extra page. It's always been a bit of a challenge to have both budget books open from the upcoming year and the current year and flipping back and forth to see where the changes are. So that's going to make going through the budget a lot easier and allow us to, you know, put a lot more thought into it with that extra brain space. I do have a question about the additional public safety position that you mentioned being funded, and understand if it's better to wait until we have the book or there's a more longer formal briefing around the sections of the budget that I know we normally do, but I am curious to know the thought behind that position.
Yes. So that position will serve a variety of purposes. One is to assist with the expanded automated enforcement. If the mayor and council adopt expanded automated enforcement, we will need additional assistance with that. But we envision the position doing more. this would be the first real designated community safety officer. So the position would assist with the walk, bike, drive safety initiative, would work in the schools, would liaise with the community to assist. We have a position similar to this, community safety manager position, and this would be dedicating a position to work in concert with that person. It would also be a position that would, as the chief and I have discussed, would be a Monday through Friday day work type position. So it's another person that, if the county fails to cover a school crosswalk, may likely be available to assist with that. We still want to keep the county responsible for or hold them accountable for their responsibilities. But this gives us an extra body to help with that as well. So lots of community outreach, lots of work in the school, lots of work with the business community and walk, bike, drive, and there's a component of automated enforcement.
Thank you, Mr. Town Manager. And this is a uniformed officer position, correct?
A sworn position, yes. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Are there additional council questions for the town manager on this first part of the highlights of the 2025 budget? Councilmember Lengua, did I hear you starting to speak?
Yes, if I may.
Please go ahead.
Thank you. The question I had, sir, was regarding, looks like you came up with a figure of $181,000 that would be coming from the general fund to supplement the budgets of projects from this current fiscal year. Is that for 3 projects or 4 projects, that amount?
I don't know if it's for 3 or 4 projects. It's wherever the money had been taken from to cover projects. Those projects are being made whole. So if it was 30,000 from one and 20,000 from another, then they would be receiving back a proportionate amount to equal that 180.
Okay. I imagine when we get into the budget hearings, you'd be able to provide more information?
Absolutely. And Mr. Jones, if you can make a note, if we could send back out to the council the presentation from, I believe, November, and the one from, I think it may have been early February. But we can send those back out to the council as well, that those detailed where the funds were moving to and from. And we would be reversing that action to make those projects whole.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, one observation, if I may.
Please go ahead.
Being that the town manager has asked Mr. Smith and Mr. Jones, once they've presented to be able to go back and work on the budget, might it be prudent for us to move up the treasurer's report that we would need to make a motion on to happen after this presentation and prior to your report and the town manager's report?
What is the reason for doing so again?
Because these gentlemen have already worked a long day, and I'd rather see them be able to finish their work sooner rather than later.
That would be fine. Would you like to make a motion to amend the agenda, Councilman?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, if I may. Even though we've already passed a motion.
I can amend the agenda anytime.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to amend the agenda to allow for, excuse me. Hold on, I got a cough.
I'm just sitting here ready for a second. That's it.
Wow. Wow, I hope Sinatra never had to clear his throat like that. Okay, anyway. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to move the monthly finance report to be presented after the highlights, the third presentation for tonight, which is the highlights of the FY 2025 proposed operating and capital improvement budget.
Seconded.
Motion by Councilmember Lingua, seconded by Councilmember Foe to move the monthly finance report ahead of the mayor's report after the third presentation. Is there any discussion by the council? Are there any public comments? I'll do a roll call vote. Councilmember Smith,
Aye.
Councilmember Foe,
Aye.
Councilmember Lingua,
Aye.
Councilmember Inyang,
Aye.
Councilmember Mejia,
Aye.
and I abstain. The motion passes 5-0. The agenda is amended. Back to you, Mr. Town Manager.
I'm here for any additional questions. I would like to thank the council for their support, though. I think Mr. Jones and Mr. Smith will be working till midnight tonight.
Any additional council questions or comments?
Well, hopefully they can finish up before then, so. And I hope this amendment affords them that opportunity.
Okay, are there, seeing no additional council comments, are there any public comments? Okay. Well,
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Inyang, did you have a question?
I was looking for the reaction button. I couldn't find it to put my hand up. The only question I would have is, I know the town manager listed a few things that were done to sort of balance the budget, from pulling funds from another, like moving funds around or delaying filling positions. I wonder, I asked if there are, in addition to that, if there were any items that were discussed as potentially being added that did not make the final presentation, sort of were left on the cutting room floor, that come to mind. It'd be good to know, or were you able to finagle everything in by doing some of the gymnastics of delaying positions and stuff like that? Or were there like, we wanted to do this particular program, but that did not make the cut?
I'll say this, at the end of the day, the staff leadership team fully supports the proposed operating and capital improvement budget. And I want to give you as direct answer as I can, sir. There's always things that don't make it through, and it's about trying to find that balance. We actually go through the vision and commitment statements, and we have ideas. There's the staff team more broadly has lots of ideas of things we can do. And, but at the end of the day, we have to be able to present a balanced budget. I'm required by charter to present a balanced budget. And so, yes, there are things that don't make it through. And there's things that get delayed. There's other things that we fund partly. I'll give you an example. As part of this budget, Public Works wants to outsource their janitorial services so they can have staff focus more on community things as opposed to cleaning our offices. And that too is slightly delayed because we needed a few extra dollars to find balance. And so it's moving us forward, but it's like, well, we're going to pull a couple dollars from here, and that's going to help us find balance. And but yes, I think Ms. Lewis would have liked to, Director Lewis would have liked to say, well, nope, we're going to go ahead and implement this. I'll start gearing up for it for July 1. And it looks more like an October start date. And that's okay. And, but based upon the best information we have, that's what we have to do. And I will go a little further and say, if there was ever something that we believed was absolutely necessary and urgent for the delivery of services or for the safety of the community, I would come to you and say, what we're going to have a revenue increase, a tax increase. If something was so urgent that it impacted the delivery of core services or the safety of the community, we would not hold that back.
Thank you.
Okay. We ready to move on to Deputy Director Jones's section of the report?
Without objection, Mr. Mayor, oh, I'm sorry. I was going to ask Mr. Jones.
Mayor and council, members of the public. So tonight's presentation, as John mentioned, is going to be very high level, covering the operating budget as well as the CIP. So to begin, for the operating revenue, we have a total budget amount of $11,020,589. If you look at, we have the local taxes making up the majority of that at 69%. If we could scroll down and cover the expenditure side.
If you could hold one section, Mr. Jones, just point out the change in automated enforcement in that section.
Right. Automated safety programs. This is another highlight here. If you notice, the approved budget amount for the current fiscal year is $1,127,000. We do have an increase there, a total of $2,168,750, as we have expanded our automated safety programs to include red light cameras, as well as additional speed cameras running 24/7. So next is the expenditure side of the budget. Again, you can see we have a balanced budget, a total of $11,020,589, with salaries, wages, benefits, and overtime making up the majority of that amount. And then we have a increase there in contractual services as the automated safety program revenue has increased. So have the expenditures for such. So we have a total amount in the current fiscal year of $1,241,000, and we have a budgeted amount for projected for fiscal year 2025 of $1,861,128. As we move down, we have broken down the expenditures by cost center. So we have the mayor and council, the total amount being $120,858. The next major category is administrative services. We have a total budget proposed amount of $1,318,570. Financial services, that total is $466,580. For employee services, we have a total of $339,443. For development services, the total is $272,946. Neighborhood services, we have a total of $310,797. For police services, we have a total of $4,030,908. Police admin, $118,278. Safety communications, that total is $588,454. And for community safety programs, as I highlighted before in the overview, this is one of the cost centers where we do see a bit of an increase. 484,531 is the current fiscal year amount, and that jumps up to 1,013,237. Much of that coming from contractual services. For public works, we have a total of 2,080,368. Weather response services, that total is 28,000. And then we have the municipal town buildings. So we have town hall, public safety, public works, and auxiliary. 28,950 for town hall, 29,500 for public safety, 38,500 for public works, and the last is the auxiliary building, and that total is $11,700. And then the last two categories that we have are community events. We do see a large increase here as well, 44,200 being the current fiscal year, and we're jumping up to 106,500 to represent an increase in our town-sponsored events and public arts programs. The last is grants, and we have a total of 117,000. And again, that gives us a total proposed budget amount of 11,020,580.
So if we can pause here, Mr. Jones, and Mr. Mayor, that's a lot of numbers, just going through a list. And again, the significant change pages will evaluate and show where the percent increases are year over year, comparing budget to budget, and help the council be able to focus in. And just by way of example, when you see the significant change page for development services or police admin or police communications, what you're going to read is there are no significant changes. You see a little adjustment to the salary, a little adjustment to the benefit cost, but that's all that's there. And then in other areas, like in public works and contracted services, the addition of a more robust tree maintenance plan, increasing funding from about 60-some thousand up to 100,000. Those are the areas that we would like to make sure we focus in on and provide clarity for the council in terms of what's proposed. So, Mr. Mayor, might there be any questions on this section?
I was about to ask the council members, any questions on this?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Inyang, go ahead.
Could we, what's the, where does the funds for that support the farmers market dollars, as well as some of the like business improvement funding, which cost center does that roll into?
Mr. Jones, what cost center has the farmers market dollars?
So we've been paying farmers market dollars when some of it was ARPA funded. Prior to that, Economic Development Fund.
So it's not in a direct cost center. It's an economic development program that's charged against a separate fund.
So how does, so in this $11 million sort of budget, where is there a particular line that is sort of accounted for, or we're saying that's that's separate, should be considered separate from the budget?
Yes, well, it's separate from the operating. It's an activity, and that activity is recorded in the Economic Development Fund. So on the fund balance sheet, you'll see projected expenditures for those programs, the same as you will for the community development grants. And so it's recorded as likely or projected expenditures from those separate funds. So that's not in this 11 million expenditure.
I see. Okay.
Any additional council questions, or your question been answered, Councilman?
I think so. I may have to just circle back offline, but I don't want to derail the meeting.
Okay. Additional council questions or comments? Any public comments or questions on this part of the highlights of the fiscal year 2025 proposed operating and capital improvement budget presentation? So while this is a highlights, the capital improvement did not make it into the presentation. Is that correct?
Oh, no, that's coming next, sir. I just wanted to hit pause here for a moment.
Okay.
If I can expand my comments briefly on Councilmember Ng Yang's question, and it's also recorded in the ARPA section of the budget in terms of the farmers market dollar program. So there's two places. So it's the fund balance sheet and in the ARPA section. But that's not part of the operating budget.
Okay, well, I have a few questions. If you could scroll back up to public safety, please. So
I would stop there. You had police services, and then further down, communications, admin, things of that nature.
okay, police services, that's fine, keep going. Maybe it was under public works, but keep going. Other direction, down. Okay, there it is in public works. So the total public works budget is up by over 10%. And at least a decent chunk of that is in the contractual services. And that's in tree maintenance as part of that. What are the other items contributing to that?
Other items that are contributing to that include the composting project.
Okay.
So that's $48,000 for the composting project on an annualized basis. Half of that for half a year. That would also be outsourcing the janitorial services. And so that's for 3/4 of the year.
Mhm.
And as explained to the council a few months ago, when we got a 1-year extension on our current landscaping contract, that we'd have to put that back out to bid starting in the fall. And so we're going to be putting that out to bid shortly, and we're projecting there will be an increase there as well.
Okay.
Director Lewis, did I miss any areas?
No, you did not. Thank you.
Okay, that was my only question. So unless there are other questions, we can move on to the capital improvement highlights. Councilmember Smith, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just one more just popped in my head on the subject of outsourcing town services. Do we have is there any sort of guidance in place or statute or anything relative to standards for firms that we outsource those services to in terms of the quality of jobs that that creates? I know it's very common that when things like janitorial services are outsourced, the government entity ends up paying more the quality of work is lacking, and the folks that they hire tend to be exploited labor, earning poverty wages with either no benefits or benefits that are out of reach for anybody earning that wage. Is that something that we have sort of safeguards in place to ensure that when we sign those contracts, that is not how any sort of savings or profit margin is achieved?
The town does not have a policy on wages for contractors unless there's a requirement to follow Davis-Bacon wage rates. So that policy currently is not in place. In terms of hiring reputable firms, yes, the firms are screened carefully. Director Lewis, is there anything you would like to add to that?
No, I think you covered it. We do spend a lot of time collecting information on the company that we're considering contracting with. Obviously, this custodial services is new for us. We may look for a contract to ride, maybe with the state or county, if such exists.
And I the only thing I would add is this is I would say a mix in terms of the goal here. The goal is not to save a couple dollars necessarily. The goal is to free up bandwidth. So it's either we would have to hire staff and to perform a part-time function, and it would make more sense to hire a firm to do that and administer that. And no staff are being displaced here. It's that we have other work that they need to be doing.
Yeah, I understand that, and thank you for that response. I just want to make sure that if that is the direction we are going, that we are not creating or hiring on jobs that pay poverty wages through the contractor, of course, in an industry that seems to be, very much a race to the bottom. I'm very concerned about that. So we'll keep an eye on it, and thank you for the response.
Any additional council or public comments on this section of the presentation? Okay, let's move on.
Mr. Jones?
Thank you. So this final portion of the presentation covers the capital improvement programs.
And
projects.
Mr. Jones, if you hold, yeah, I was going to ask if the screen could be made larger so we can actually see the numbers, but they're doing that now. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, no problem. So yeah, we have broken down the capital improvement projects into a few major categories. The first being the community projects. As you see here listed, the total for community projects is $1,668,170. It includes the 47th to Taylor Linear Park, the Pollinator Garden, Mount Rose Park, ARPA Public Wi-Fi, Community Garden, Flood Mitigation Rain Garden, Welcome Signage, Town Common Seal, Bus Stop Improvements, Adam and Emily Plummer Park, Town Center Underpass, 54th Place Pocket Park and Complex, Town Center Trail and Parking Lot Redesign, and the electric charge station. The next category that we have are building renovations that total $1,311,267. These include the Municipal Center renovation, the new Municipal Center stormwater project, building weatherization and stabilization, DPW building renovation, building demolition, and parking lot development, and lastly, the pedestrian walkway and Queensberry Road security project. The next category is technology upgrades, where we have a total of $259,104. This includes council chambers camera system, technology improvements in finance, website update project, and then technology improvements for the police. Next is the public safety acquisitions category, totaling $135,221. This includes the neighborhood safety camera system, the traffic signs project, and the e-message board. If we scroll down, there is we have the vehicle, furniture, and fixtures acquisitions, which total $362,043. This includes office furnishing and then vehicle replacements for police, neighborhood services, and public works. The next category is streetlight acquisitions. We have a total of $50,986. This includes the street light pole acquisition, street light improvements, and the trolley trail lighting. Next is street furniture and equipment. This includes police weapons and street furniture and waste receptacles. We have a total of $15,000. And the next is the road and sidewalk construction. We have a total of $1,325,000. This includes engineering services, stormwater improvement, CDBG funded sidewalk improvements, curb ramp improvements, and then street and sidewalk improvements. And the last category that we have is the new walk, bike, drive safety category, a total of $888,935. This includes the new Safe Streets and Roads for All project, as well as the new walk, bike, drive safety improvements project. All in total, we have $6,016,263 in CIP project expenditures for fiscal year 2025.
And
Thank you, Deputy Director Jones. Mr.
And
Town
Mr.
Manager, go
I
ahead.
wanted to clarify a few things in anticipation of questions. So if we can go up to vehicle acquisitions. So there's not many vehicles being purchased in this budget. That dollar number you see for vehicle replacement police, $199,000. The bulk of that is paying on the leases for the lease vehicles. The recommendation in the proposal is to acquire one police vehicle, one electric police vehicle. Is the recommendation there. And then in public works, the recommendation is one pickup truck and then one utility vehicle, UTV, and that would be equipped with a snow plow, so we can plow our protected bike lanes. The bike lanes are too narrow to put a regular pickup truck in, and so we need a UTV. And when not plowing snow, the UTV would be a vehicle that the ambassadors would be able to use in and around town as they are out cleaning the neighborhoods. So I wanted to clarify that on the vehicles.
Thank you, Mr. Town Manager. Councilmember Smith, go ahead.
Does anybody else have a question? I feel like I'm monopolizing the first questions here.
Dive in.
Alrighty. First of all, I love the idea of equipping a smaller vehicle with the plow for the bike lanes. That really demonstrates how our community is thinking about multimodal transportation and ensuring safety contingencies in a variety of situations. I do wonder about its application for the trolley trail. I know that is not our it's not our property. It is not our job to maintain it. I'm wondering if it is something we are not allowed to maintain. In my experience, the trolley trail, the parking planning tends to be a little slow in getting that plowed in the event of a storm. And is this vehicle something we could use for that application, or are we just like forbidden from this parking planning, just not want us messing with their stuff?
Well, in response, I'll have Director Lewis respond, but it's my understanding that we plow the trolley trail.
Well, so that is a more actually impressive response time than it takes a few days, given that you're also doing the streets. So yeah, I would love to hear from that on that from Ms. Lewis.
Yeah, so we actually have an MOU with MNC PPC to maintain the trolley trail. In fact, it's been in place prior to my joining the town. I forget the date of that MOU. In fact, we need to expand it to include the section of the trail in Riverdale Park Station. And so I hope you found in the last 5 year, in your tenure, that we've actually done a good job plowing the trolley trail, because that's one of our priorities, obviously, because of the sort of commuting nature of the trail for some residents, people passing through our community.
Absolutely. I'm glad you put me on the spot about that, Miss Lewis, because now that I think about it, that is not a commuting route I have taken. Now that I think about it, since COVID happened. So I'm sure there have been improvements if we've taken that over.
Okay.
And you know, if we're plowing a thing that is, you know, not ours, so to speak, even if it is taking a day or so, that to me is acceptable versus the folks that own it not taking care of it. So I do appreciate the work that Public Works is doing there, and thank you for the correction there. My other question is on the council chambers cameras. That's a high number. I'm not extremely familiar with what that sort of thing costs. I'm guessing that for the system that we have priced out, that is an entirely reasonable figure based on, you know, staff's general approach to the budget. I'm wondering if alternatives were considered for something maybe that would meet our need but be a bit less sophisticated. I'm not sure what we're getting for that, but while I certainly want all of our residents to be able to tune into our meetings and have that transparency, you know, we're essentially, as I look at the math, which I'm not great at, admittedly, but that we're talking about 2 FTE to go to the camera system. And I'm wondering if there's a way, or if there is an alternative that has been considered on that.
And that's a really good question, Councilmember Smith. And I really wish we could use that 194 somewhere else. That is PEG money, and it's capital money that we receive through the cable franchise. So public education and government. The capital money can only be used for capital improvements. It's been accumulating over the years. And so we can put in a good system at some point. And so all 194 doesn't have to be expended, but it's sitting there, and we should expend a significant portion of it. It will continue to grow. We receive PEG funds every year. Thinking back to the proposed uses of 6601 Baltimore Avenue, and perhaps having a public access channel, those funds could be used for setting up some sort of a recording studio, for making videos in that. I believe it was you who commented about that would be really neat. And we would be able to use those funds for that purpose as well. But we're just limited on what we can use them for. So we plugged them into the budget. If there's the camera system's not going to cost that. But if there's something else that we can use them for in this year, the funds are available, and we have to get expending those funds. We've been carrying them for too long.
Understood. Thank you for the education on that. And I'm just assuming that whatever is purchased there, in the event that transfer of the municipal center to a new property, that we are thinking of that system being transferable as well.
Yes, sir.
Outstanding. Thank you, Mr. Town Manager.
Hoping for a high quality audio system, as well as the camera system. And I'm assuming that the hybrid meeting facilities, our equipment can also be purchased out of that. So
Yes, sir.
Let's get some cameras that give us hair, Mr. Mayor.
that may be asking a little bit too much. We'd have to have an AI processing system built in there to put hair on top of my head, certainly.
It would be for several of us, sir.
Any additional council questions? I see Councilmember Inyang has unmuted. Go ahead.
Yeah, outside of the AI hair removal or additions, I have a question in terms of the bus stop improvements. I know we voted on sort of designs earlier this year or earlier last year, or later last year on that, that 65,000 is sort of the actual building of some of the bus stops, or is this like carryover from additional work from last year's budget?
So I'll start with this and then Ryan, if I get anything wrong, jump in. But it's my understanding right now in the 24 budget, we actually have 90-some thousand. And we're hoping to expend some of that money this year. And then the 65 is moving forward. We had bid the project and we received one bid, and the bid was several times higher than what the engineers anticipated. So it's on the list to reissue. Mr. Chelton, did I get that correct?
That's correct, and it's actually been reissued, and I believe we're expecting bids within the next 2 or 3 weeks. Yes.
Got it. And then just the last thing about the town common seal, is that the design of it, or is that the paying for the actual sort of sign replacements around town that we've talked about as well?
Director Barnes.
That will be the next phase of the project, which is actually putting the new town seal onto the various formats that we need to have it in. So the design will be done in this fiscal year, or at the very end of this fiscal year, very beginning of next. And then the next phase will just be making sure we get the town seal, the new town seal out and about.
Got it. And then just the last thing, just and the town center underpass, is that just underneath East West Highway?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, all good things. You can spend as much money as you need on that. Thank you.
Well, and that project is been delayed because the state didn't know what they owned or who to talk to, and it's been a real challenge. But Mr. Chelton, we just got clarity on that last week, was it?
That's correct. Mr. Hayter and I know who to speak with now, and we're moving forward, and we are optimistic that we'll see something early this summer.
Thank
That's
you.
fantastic news. Okay, additional council comments or questions? Any public comments or questions on this section of the presentation?
Mr. Mayor, I have one closing comment.
Please go ahead.
I just want to thank the mayor and council for your patience with the staff team as we're putting the book together, and the community's patience as well. We will get that out to you here shortly. We look forward to working with you as we go through the budget in much greater detail, responding to your questions and seeing where the council ends up on their funding decisions.
Thank you, Mr. Town Manager, and I would very much like to thank the staff, finance staff in particular, for the hard work that went into this. This is an enormous effort every year, and getting it to balance every year is an art form, and I appreciate how skillful your team is at that, and also at the product itself. So thank you. Okay, according to our amended agenda, we will next go to the monthly finance report.
Deputy Director Jones.
Sure, thank you. Again, good evening, Mayor and Council, members of the public. Tonight's finance reports cover, and I'm sorry, that should read March at the top, fiscal year 2024. But yes, tonight's report covers March, February, and January, and then we have a year to date. So for the month of March, revenue total $474,000. 15, and expenditures total $619,981. Leaving us with a revenue net expenditure, we have negative $145,966. Again, as I've covered in previous finance reports, the town receives the majority of their revenue in the fall, so we will have some months where the expenditures exceed the revenues. But if you look at the year to date, currently revenues total $8,264,000. We have expenditures that total $6,198,000, leaving us with a net of $2,065,748. In the previous fiscal year, that net was a bit higher at $2,072,910. The year before that was actually at $2,614,000. So consistent with my previous finance reports, the revenue net expenditures is trending at a downward pace. We are still anticipating to reach the estimated actuals that I had reported on in last week. So it's not that we're in a bad situation, but the trend is that the revenue net expenditures that we relied on to fund CIP projects in the past, that figure is not as robust. So yeah, that concludes the finance reports for March fiscal year 2024. And if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you, Deputy Director Jones. I appreciate the words of explanation for everyone who's seeing that negative number over there. Council, do you have any questions or comments for Deputy Director Jones? Okay. With not even seeing a microphone coming on there, may I please have a motion to adopt the monthly finance report subject to audit?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Lingua, seconded by Councilmember Inyang to adopt the finance report subject to audit. Is there any discussion of this motion by the council? Are there any public comments? Seeing none, I'll do a roll call vote. Councilmember Smith,
Aye.
Councilmember Foe,
Aye.
Councilmember Lingua,
Aye.
Councilmember Inyang,
Aye.
Councilmember Mejia.
Aye.
And I abstain. The motion passes 5-0. Finance team, you are not needed for the remainder of the meeting. So, well, not here. Sounds like elsewhere you are needed. Okay.
Thank you.
Looping back on our agenda to the mayor's report. I have a fairly short report this evening. I hope everyone had a happy Easter yesterday, and I would like to wish everyone a happy April Fool's Day today for those who observe. And I will not be observing in my report this evening because there's too much serious stuff going on. Starting off with some good news. The COVID situation is looking quite good. All the indicators are heading down. Slight bump in one of them in DC, but in general, things are looking quite good. Stay safe. On Wednesday night, the Legacy Mutsi Local Design Review Committee will be reviewing the Al Karim project. It's a mixed-use housing, apartments, and restaurant on the site of the current Chambers Funeral Home. We were presented with quite a stack of documents last week, and it looks like they have done a very good job of providing us with lots of information. So we'll have that review on Wednesday night starting at 7:30. As mentioned earlier, the Walk, Bike, Drive initiative is having a lot more focus put on it for obvious reasons. And in the town crier, there was a call for additional volunteers. That call said that those who'd already submitted, we know who you are. We have your submissions, but anyone else who's interested, please do submit. I hope that we will get information on that in the next upcoming next few weeks and be able to start looking at staffing that committee late in April. And last in my report, I've been spending a lot of time on legislation. The General Assembly wraps up this year's legislative session next Monday, probably pretty close to midnight. And just to give you updates on where a few things are, there's a bill that's in play for speed cameras to be evaluated and tickets written by non-sworn officers. And it looked for a little while like there's going to be an amendment that would allow that only for municipalities that did not have a police force, but that amendment seems to have been withdrawn. And we'll see how that bill fares over the next week or so. I haven't discussed this before, but there's been quite a bit of legislation on juvenile justice, focusing on various options of how to provide additional supports to the families, how to support the parents, how to have the parents have an easier time being responsible for their children. A lot of those bills have consolidated into a single bill at this point. And again, we have to see what happens in the remainder of the legislative session. The stop sign, automated stop sign legislation is looking fairly good right now. It's moving forward. I was very disappointed to find out today, I think I'd heard this several weeks ago, but forgotten it, is that this legislation is only in effect in Prince George's County. And it allows in the county a grand total of 10 stop sign cameras. And just as a reminder, there are 11 councilmanic districts in the county. So it's basically one per district, and there's around 27 municipalities. So it's not very many. This is sort of a trial bill, see how it goes. There's apparently quite a section of the legislature that's opposed to automated enforcement. And so they basically said, keep a lid on it, don't have too many stop signs, and we'll do it. I'm going to see if I can possibly testify at the next Senate hearing on this, because I want to say that they are balancing that against lives, because that's where we are. Last, moving out of the State House into the county, I discussed last week at the work session the 2-year extension to the zoning ordinance that was passed, unfortunately. So developers will be able to pick and choose which whether they want the old zoning ordinance or the new zoning ordinance for another 2 years, and we will work within that. And that's it for my legislative roundup, and that concludes my report for this evening. Unless there are any questions, and looks like there aren't any, we can move on to the town manager's report. Mr. Town Manager.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I will be very brief this evening. A reminder for the council and the community, we have 2 budget public hearings coming up, Saturday, April 13th and Saturday, April 20th. Those are held virtually, and they begin at 9:30 a.m. And the only other thing I have, Mr. Mayor, is a very brief update, I suppose, on the tot lot, and that is that staff did meet with outside counsel from Legit, and we are waiting on the engineer's report. And I did send correspondence to the attorney for the adjoining property owner, asking the attorney to outline their legal arguments and the foundation for their legal assertions. And that once we have the report from the engineers, and a more thorough review from the outside counsel. I'll be requesting a closed meeting with the council to review and receive that insight from the outside counsel and the engineer's report.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Town Manager. Are there any questions or comments for Town Manager Listician? Okay. Moving on the agenda, correspondence summary was removed earlier. Fire Department report, I will simply read a short email that was distributed to the town council. President Lamphere apologized for being out of town, appreciates the support of the town staff on several issues, and said he will be preparing a brief presentation to the mayor and council later in the year. Not much has changed with the county situation. Vehicle and facility issues remain. Department does have a member who has now completed her EMT training. That is a plus. And department will submit its application for FEMA Safer Grant, which will provide funding for volunteer recruitment and retention. And President Lamphere provides his phone and email for anyone who wishes to reach out. And I can't answer any questions because I have exactly as much information now as the rest of you do. So moving along on the agenda, next item is council, committee, and ward reports. We'll start with Councilmember Smith, Ward 1.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just once again, big thank you to the staff, particularly the finance staff, who are it's like still hanging around, but I'm sure doing lots of heavy work with the speakers turned down here, and appropriately so. Thank you for all the work that goes into this budget each year. I know it's a sizable undertaking for us as council members, and we have the easy part. So I know you guys are doing exponentially more work than that on it. So thank you again for that work. I just want to mention or tack on to the mayor's comments on the Al Kareem development on the chamber site. It's very nice to work with a developer, be it on the council side or through those of us that are members of the MUTC committee, who is transparent and communicative, provides details, provides documentation that would get you more than an incomplete in a high school English class, which is not always something that we're able to get from developers working in town. I think this is a project that is going to be something the town can be proud of. It will be essentially at the southern entrance to the town and welcome our community. And the developers have been very clear that that's how they're envisioning it, that they want it to be something that we see as that purpose as well, and are willing to make design adjustments to that end. So it's just been really great working with them, especially in comparison to some of the other projects that we end up working on. So if anybody has any questions about that project, I'm sure the mayor's happy to talk about it as well, based on what we've seen in the MUTC meetings, but I'm happy and available to discuss as well. So really excited about that project, and it really goes to show how much our town is growing, be it, the residential side, the commercial side. We have businesses expanding in town center. We have new businesses opening on Queensberry Avenue, which I'll ask the council for their support in writing our letter of support for the application for a liquor license for a new restaurant on Queensberry Road. And I know that's on the agenda later, so I would definitely appreciate support from the council based on what we heard in the work session from the proprietor of that business. So exciting stuff happening in Ward 1 and across town. In terms of things wider happening in the world, of course, our state continues to grapple with the incident at the Key Bridge. As I mentioned in the work session, just, a couple days before it went down, my family and I drove across it on the way up to New Jersey. And it's sad that it won't be there anymore. I hope that we get something bigger and better that can provide more economic benefit to the state. And I'm just so thankful that we have a governor and a president that are, locked in on the recovery from that incident and that understand the need for public works projects, and that those support entire communities, the entire state's economy. And we'd be in a world of hurt without leaders that have that in mind. And then I guess lastly, I'll just leave everybody with encouragement to watch Final Four this coming week. Roll Tide. And that's all I have for this evening, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Smith. Councilmember Foe, Ward 2.
My wife would be reticent not to say go Huskies. They play Alabama this upcoming weekend. So there is a ward war between myself and Councilmember Smith. Good evening, everybody. I hope you guys are doing well. Last couple of days has been one of those why you move here kind of days. Do you know what I mean? The weather's warming up a little bit. I spent the last 2 days entirely outside digging in the dirt, trying to rearrange our new backyard to ensure that we are ready for Levon's birthday party on April 20th. Just want to remind everybody, it's that time of year. Chesapeake Bay Watershed Rain Barrel Rebate Plan is a place that you can get some financial assistance to do those things that you want to do concerning rainwater catchment, concerning non-permeable pavement installation and removal. You can plant trees. I recently purchased 3 trees with sticker price of $900 because one of them didn't meet the caliper requirement in size. We only got $750 back on that. Trees that will hopefully, honestly, the red maple that I have in the side of my house can grow to between 80 and 100 feet tall. And my goal is to be able to tell people that I can put shade on East-West Highway. I encourage every single one of you, whether you have a big project or 1,000 small projects, to look into this program to see what you can bring to your space or your community. I intend on utilizing all $6,000 allotted to our individual property because, quite frankly, I want to push for more. I want to run up against that ceiling and smash through it and say, hey, this is what we're doing in our backyard to participate in this dialogue about environmental engagement, and I want it to be a showcase of that. With that being said, Saturday was a remarkable day in Riverdale Park as we held our Easter egg hunt at Riversdale Mansion. It's always remarkable to go out and see the hundreds of people that came to this event in our community, predominantly children. If there's one thing that always makes me feel very sound about our investment in this community, it is the presence of families with children that we are surrounded by. I just want to shout out to staff, Director Barnes, everybody else who was there. It are these kind of events that bring community together and make this place really what I believe a gem in Prince George's County and the entire DMV. We have an opportunity to create engagement. You see people chomping at the bit to participate in those kind of things. And it's just always remarkable to go over and see Director Barnes or Director Maya Davis, who's pushing for community conversations to occur at Riversdale. Councilmember Mejia, I got to meet her new grandchild, and Councilmember Lingua walking through the grounds and picking up trash that he found, always serving as a great example for our community. It was a really great event. Thank you for hosting. I have 2 constituents that recently reached out to me, some issues that we have on 48th Avenue between Queensbury and Riversdale. I've reached out to staff, and I'm just pushing this again, just so I can have some solutions when I go knock on those doors again. There's a giant pothole, and there is a bus turning south onto 48th heading towards Riverdale Road. And there is some issues with that turn, potentially some damage that our streets are occurring or incurring. And I just want to make sure that when I knock on this door that I've talked to our incredible staff, so we can talk about some potential future solutions in that site. Last but not least, I have agreed to attend both days of the Riversdale Revisited Conference on April 15th and 16th. It's being hosted duly by Maya Davis of Riversdale and Betsy Otto, Ward 4 town member who's a Harvard Loeb Fellow, who sought the funding for this creative conference to discuss the future of Adam and Emily Plummer Park. Those of you that know, you could have found me over at the farmers market 9 years ago, setting up a table, talking about doing something in this park, and to see it, in budget this evening, to see it having these dialogues is really one of the more exciting things that I've ever been engaged in. It is right up my wheelhouse as a United States history teacher to be actively engaged in discussing this history. And the fact that I will get to participate in something like this, even just from a listening perspective, is something that you can hang your hat on as to why did I get engaged in local politics. And it's to be able to participate in things like this. And I am just so remarkably fortunate to be here in the town of Riverdale Park, whether I'm out in my yard trying to plant some new hostas, getting ready for spring, or attending a conference where we can actually embed into the historical record the experiences of those enslaved in our communities. I'm a shining example of what participation can get you, and I am lucky and fortunate to be engaged in that. With that, yield my time, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Foe. Councilmember Lingwell, Ward 3.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Good evening to everybody out there who happens to be joining us tonight via Zoom. I think the description of my actions have been greatly over-exaggerated. It was just a single plastic bottle that was picked up off the Riversdale ground. I don't think that would really constitute a exorbitant amount of trash that I was picking up that day at the mansion on Saturday. Did have some rather good conversations with Director Davis regarding about community conversations, and also about their hosting and having community conversations in 2025 being somewhat related to the town centennial. I think that's a number of discussions that we'll be having with Ms. Davis, as well as staff in the community as planning goes forward for the Centennial +5 celebration. Another thing that we discussed in very general terms, as they are looking to identify grant money to restore the dairy and the downstairs section where they would keep things cool at Riversdale. There was very broad discussion of working with Riversdale and in large part MNC PPC, as well as the University of Maryland, to host something along the lines of Dairy Day at Riversdale, which can be a fun gathering event. Talk about agriculture, and any other number of things related to work that Charles Benedict Calvert did in establishing the Maryland Agricultural College. The fact that the university is a land grant college to this day. Again, this is very, very preliminary, but it's something that she seemed very interested in. And I think it's one of the ways that we can reach out to not only the Office of Community Engagement over at University of Maryland, as well as reaching out to Mr. Ullman, who's heading up the Discovery District, for ideas towards this and how it could be filled out. Other than what's been brought up regarding the budget hearing committee meetings, as well as a number of other things that others have brought up, which I don't mind having such thunder sounded elsewhere. No issue with me. I do appreciate it. That would be the extent of the ward report tonight.
Thank you, Councilmember Rowling. Thank you, Councilmember. Let's move on.
If I could finish
Oh.
with one small point, as I was about to say.
Sorry about that. Thought you were done.
No, not a problem. In regards to events up at the Key Bridge in Baltimore, as Governor Moore pointed out, people who lost their lives up there were Marylanders. And for what they did and what they came here in the pursuit of their dreams, as well, it makes them Americans. And I hope that folks will be able to keep them and their families in their prayers, and their meditations, as they are able to. And with that, I will conclude the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Apologies for the early interruption. Councilmember Inyang, Ward 4.
Thank you. Appreciate the staff's sort of time, the work on the budget. I know it is extensive, and even some of the suggested changes to make it easier to sort of for mayor and council to review. Definitely appreciate that, and looking forward to the finalized documents and having robust discussions on what some of those changes are. I think ultimately, I think the biggest thing, really, keeping today short. I know there were a couple items from last week that brought up. I was wondering if there's any updates on that, around the conversations with Pepco on some of the items behind the townhomes in Riverdale Park Station on Van Buren, and then as well as the Purple Line community and then some of the lights there. And then I think just looking forward to, I think as the weather increases, been having a lot of sort of positive conversations, especially with, businesses in the Discovery District looking to sort of partner with the town. And so I think we'll want to think about what's the best way to sort of engage businesses who are thinking about whether it's event programming. I mean, it was positive to sort of see that we have funds in the budget for it. But I know I've mentioned in a meeting maybe a few weeks ago about, the potential for having some, small event grants or something like that, something to sort of incentivize the community or businesses to sort of, take the mantle and not have it all land on the town. and happy to talk through and discuss what might make the most sense to make sure that it meets all of our community guidance and standards. But I think there's an opportunity there, and definitely looking forward to finding an opportunity to see if the town can take a leadership role in sort of creating opportunities for the community and businesses to sort of meet, gather, and those are the things that make this place special for folks to sort of get to know their neighbors. And I'm really incentivized to make to take up. I think, Mr. Ullman and a lot of the folks who spoke to us, last year on how do we make the Discovery District not a soulless office park that people never use. And so, I will definitely be working to sort of think about creative ways and strategies for the town as well as business leaders to find solutions to make it more welcoming for folks and residents. And with that, I'll yield the rest of my time.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Mejia, Ward 5, do you have a report this evening?
Good evening. I have no report this evening, but I enjoyed myself this Saturday seeing some of the council members at the Easter Bunny event. That's about it.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. That concludes council committee and ward reports. We can move on now to public comments. Are there any public comments? Don't actually see any members of the public, but you never know exactly who's hiding behind what name. Okay, let's move on to the consent agenda. The two items under the consent agenda were not moved during the two amendments of the agenda, so I would like to ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda items.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Inyang, seconded by Councilmember Smith. I hope I got that correct. There are a lot of microphones going on and off there.
Correct.
These are neither debated nor discussed, so we'll move immediately to a roll call vote. Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Foe.
Aye.
Councilmember Lingua.
Aye.
Councilmember Inyang.
Aye.
Councilmember Mejia.
Aye.
And I abstain. The motion passes 5-0. That brings us to legislative action items. 1, motion to authorize the town manager to sign an agreement with DNF Construction, Inc., ECM Corporation, and ENR Services, Inc. for on-call construction services for road improvement projects. We heard that this was coming last week, but I think we might want to have a presentation from staff before we have a motion.
Okay,
Director
good
Lewis,
evening,
can you update?
I'm sorry.
ahead.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I'll repeat the motion. Staff is requesting your authorization for the town manager to sign a 5-year contract with 3 general contractors for on-call construction services for road improvement projects. The contractors are DNF Construction, ECM Corporation, and ENR Services Incorporated. All 3 contractors submitted responsive bids and have relevant experience, good references, and competitive pricing when compared to unit prices provided by the town's on-call engineer. Their services will include repair and resurfacing of town roads, the installation of road markings and traffic signs in multiple locations at one time, the installation of raised crosswalks, raised intersections, speed humps, curb ramps, and bike lanes, the construction, reconstruction, and repair of sidewalks, curb and gutters, and the reconstruction and installation of stormwater infrastructure. The contractors will be selected on a rotating basis, or staff will choose the best choose the contractor rather best suited for the project, or whose price is more favorable for the project under consideration. A task order contract will be required for each project, and any task order above $20,000 will be presented to the mayor and council for approval. And with that, I'll take questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Lewis. Members of the council, do you have questions for Director Lewis? Okay. Members of the public, any members of the public have questions for Director Lewis? Okay, I only have one few questions. The first is that under item 4, they will also be handling curb cuts. Is that correct? Should any-
Yes.
Should any be needed? Okay.
Mhm.
And I guess the question that has always been out there about this is, do you have a sort of firm line on where council approval will be requested versus not council approval on these contracts?
Again, anything over a task order over $20,000 will be brought to council. So it depends on how we package the work, whether or
Okay.
not we may, in fact, before the end of the fiscal year, do some additional crosswalks. It's possible that may come in for the locations that were identified earlier this year. They'll come in less than $20,000. If we add some curb ramps to that, where we have sidewalks and where we're doing the crosswalks, it may exceed 20,000, and that would be brought to the council in a package.
Okay, that wasn't clear to me last week, so thank you very much for clarifying that. I appreciate
And
it.
that's similar to what we do with the on-call engineers. It
Mhm.
really depends on the cost of the task order contract.
Sure, and I think with the on-call engineers, we haven't had very many over $20,000, and so not used to seeing that, but I appreciate very much the clarification. And I guess those are my only 2 questions. So unless council has any questions, then we can go ahead and go for a motion. I don't see any. So can I have a motion to authorize the town manager to sign, I guess it's technically agreements with DNF Construction, Inc., ECM Corporation, and ENR Services, Inc. for on-call construction services for road improvement projects?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Foe, seconded by Councilmember Lingua. Is there any council discussion of the motion to authorize the town manager? Are there any public comments? I will do a roll call vote. Councilmember Smith,
Aye.
Councilmember Foe,
Aye.
Councilmember Lingua,
Aye.
Councilmember Inyang,
Aye.
Councilmember Mejia,
Aye.
and I abstain. The motion passes 5-0.
Thank you very much. Mhm.
Next item on the agenda, motion to adopt resolution 2024-R-06 regarding vision and commitment statement for best practices, technology, and data. May I please have such a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Councilmember Lingua. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Inyang. Can we please have the memo is up. So we adjusted the language of this statement a little bit last week, as I remember. And anybody have any additional comments? It looked good to me. Not seeing any microphones unmuting. Are there any public comments on the motion to adopt resolution 2024-R-06 regarding a vision commitment statement for best practices, technology, and data? Okay, I'll do a roll call vote. Councilmember Smith,
Aye.
Councilmember Foe,
Aye.
Councilmember Lingua,
Aye.
Councilmember Inyang,
Aye.
Councilmember Mejia,
Aye.
and I abstain. The motion passes 5-0. This brings us to next item on legislative action items. Just a second, I need to continue marking up my agenda or I'll lose track of where I am. This is a motion to authorize letter of support to Prince George's County Board of License Commissioners for the MAP Grill House. Is there a staff presentation or has council members spoken to neighbors or anyone else about this issue?
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Town Manager, go ahead.
From a staff perspective, I believe that Director Barnes corresponded via email with the owners, and she can share what the message was. Director Barnes.
Certainly. Good evening again. We spoke with the owners of Map Grill House. Staff met with them, I believe, back in the end of November, and at that time they had I guess, discussed the fact that the community was very supportive of their new business, and they had they'd done an extensive outreach to the community. And so we followed up at the end of last week just to confirm that nothing else had changed and everything remains the same. And the owners did confirm they still have a lot of support from their neighbors, and everyone seems to be looking forward to the new business coming and opening their doors.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Director Barnes. Appreciate that. Okay, does someone want to make a motion to authorize a letter of support to the Prince George's County Board of License Commissioners for the Map Grill House?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Smith, go ahead.
so moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Seconded.
Motion by Councilmember Smith, seconded by Councilmember Foe to authorize a letter of support to the Prince George's County Board of License Commissioners for the Map Grill House. Is there any council discussion of this motion?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Smith, go ahead.
as I said in my report, would just ask the council to support this action. This is a competitive process, so it is not just you meet the requirements and you get a license. There are only so many licenses to go around. And as we know, it's very hard to remain competitive as in the restaurant business without a liquor license. I think this will be a wonderful addition to our town and to Ward 1. I'm looking forward to trying some wonderful West African dishes at the Map Grill, and just once again ask the council for their support. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Smith. Is there additional council discussion? Are there any public comments? Okay, I will do a roll call vote. Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Foe.
Aye.
Councilmember Lingua.
Aye.
Councilmember Inyang.
Aye.
Councilmember Mejia.
Aye.
And I abstain. The motion passes 5-0. Okay, that brings us to the second page of the agenda. Unfinished business. Item 1, Walk Bike Drive Safety Initiative Speed Automated Enforcement Residential Zone. Is there a staff presentation?
Acting Chief Turner.
Yes, sir. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. No formal action is requested this evening at the legislative meeting. Instead, staff seek an opportunity to continue the discussion with the mayor and council on proposed changes to the Town Code Chapter 64 to allow for residential enforcement districts. As discussed at the March 4th legislative meeting and the March 26th work session, Town Code Chapter 6420, School Zones Established, designates the school zone for speed monitoring as defined in Chapter 64-21, School Zone Speed Monitoring Systems. Authorized state law permits speed monitoring in school zones Monday through Friday during school hours to ensure the health, safety, and welfare of residents as well as the visitors of the town. Staff recommend the council amend the town code to include residential enforcement districts. The change to residential enforcement districts would allow for automated speed enforcement to occur every day at all times. While current speed monitoring program may serve effectively during weekday school hours, it does not allow for enforcement in later evening hours, at night, early morning hours, and weekends. This change would support the town's vision and commitment to transportation as well as the Walk Bike Drive Safety Initiative through modifying drivers' behavior 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. As discussed before, several neighborhood jurisdictions such as the City of College Park, the City of Bowie, the Town of Cheverly, and the Town of Edmiston have already adopted residential enforcement district approach to improving safety. The proposed change to residential enforcement districts would not affect Riverdeck Court, which will remain a school zone because it is non-residential at this time. Furthermore, at this time, staff are not requesting any additional automated enforcement camera locations. Following discussions with the mayor and council, staff worked with town attorney Fred Sussman to draft legislation to amend the town code to include residential enforcement districts. The draft legislation is attached for the mayor and council's review.
Thank you, Chief Turner. Appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
Members of the council, do you have questions or comments on the proposed ordinance? Are there, Councilmember Linguo, I see you're unmuted. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I for discussion's sake, I have no issue with expanding the hours. I know there are other locations in Maryland where cameras are operational for under the same circumstances, under the same provisions. This is something that's really just a key part to our walk, bike, drive initiative efforts. So as a first step forward, I think it makes sense.
Thank you, Councilmember Linguo. Appreciate those comments. Are there additional council questions or comments on this proposed legislation?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Foe, go ahead.
I agree with what Councilman Lingua said. The data is clearly there that we have an increase of speeding occurring in off hours. We have the infrastructure in place, and we have an almost unmitigable traffic problem that exists in our community concerning, the budgets of local municipalities. And as long as we are bordered by Kenilworth, East West Highway, and Baltimore Avenue, this is going to continue to be a problem. I recognize that people only slow down for the cameras, but I'm fine with that and the increased hours. Thank you very much, and I yield.
Thank you, Councilmember Foe. Are there additional council comments? Are there any public comments? So since we aren't taking action on this tonight, the one question that I would have, and maybe this could be answered before the work session. Well, one thing that will be answered before the work session is whether there is automated stop sign enforcement legislation in play or not. And as I understand it, I haven't reviewed it in detail, then that is a school zone based legislation and may stick with that in future expansions. Hopeful that there will be future expansions. And so it may be that we don't want to completely dismantle our school zone legislation moving forward, because we'd like to have that in place. And the other question, of course, is whether we can enable the possibility of stop sign enforcement with this change of legislation, or whether we need to wait for a time when we actually have an approved camera that can go in, or more than one approved camera that can go in. So those are the questions that I have. I think that I have no concerns at all with expanding our speed enforcement, but I just would like to be efficient about the legislative process if we can do it as one event. And I did discuss with several other mayors. My monthly mayor's meeting was last week, and I discussed how this was working for them, and they said that they had seen positive impacts on speeding after they implemented the residential based speed monitoring. So I support this, and as I said, hope we can look into those questions about other automated enforcement. And as I said, we'll know a week from tomorrow whether there's legislation at all for the county to implement stop signs. Any additional council comments? Okay. Thank you, Chief Turner. Appreciate that. Next item on the agenda is a review of the revised diversity and inclusion statement.
Director Barnes.
Good evening again, Mayor Thompson and members of the council. As we discussed last week, we've been going through a process to review our vision and commitment statements, and this is the last step to review our diversity and inclusion statement. It was important to add equity to that statement, and that's what we did. In the meantime, in the week between meetings, we added the concept of equity to the statement, and those are the revisions that you see before you.
Okay, thank you for those edits. Council members, any feedback on this draft?
Mr. Mayor, no, I just want to thank staff for working to get this done. I think it's important. I love all the new additions, and I think it's important that equity shows up as clean as it is now, and sort of not implied or buried in sort of the text. So super excited about this. Appreciate the work on it.
Absolutely agree. Councilmember Lingua, you're
Same
unmuted.
sentiments, right? Same sentiments. Same sentiments.
Okay, so I see that the staff is seeking direction this evening, and it sounds like everybody's happy with it. Do council want to have another couple of weeks, another month to review it, or does somebody want to make a motion to adopt it this evening?
Motion to adopt the revised diversity, equity, inclusion statement.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Inyang, seconded by Councilmember Smith to adopt the revised diversity, equity, and inclusion statement. Well, I think we technically, let me get it up on screen here. It's vision and commitment statement. Is that correct?
It's not. It's
Okay.
It's
It's separate from those.
policy. Yes,
Okay.
separate policy statement.
Okay. Just wanted to be sure there. Okay. Is there a council discussion of the motion to adopt the revised diversity, equity, and inclusion statement? Are there any public comments? Hearing none, I'll do a roll call vote. Councilmember Smith,
Aye.
Councilmember Foe,
Aye.
Councilmember Lingua,
Aye.
Councilmember Inyang,
Aye.
Councilmember Mejia let me know that she had to leave to prepare for work, and so she is not here. So the motion, abstain, the motion passes 4-0. Okay, that brings us on the agenda to the Riverdale Park Community and Municipal Center project update, the 6601 Baltimore Avenue project. I don't believe I have any updates. Mr. Town Manager, do you have any?
I don't have anything additional from last week, sir.
Okay, just to repeat it for those who might be watching through the streaming services. We have been in communication with Congressman Ivy's office, and they are working very hard on this, preparing it for the start of next year's budget process, and have taken it on as a very important project for the office. And so I'm hopeful that we're going to see a lot of progress over the year ahead. That's all I have to say. Okay, let's moving on the agenda under new business. Update on tree planting and maintenance service request for proposals RFP number DPW 2024-004.
And is it Newmont here this evening or?
Yes,
Newmont? Hello,
yes.
sir.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council member. Staff would like to update on the solicitation process underway for the tree planting and maintenance services that staff want to contract with for. And I will just provide you an overview of the process. An RFP was issued on February 28th for urban tree grant implementation and ongoing tree care. This includes on-call pruning and when necessary, removal of town-owned trees. This RFP ties into soon to be finalized tree management plan, which is being finalized by the consultant, supported by or funded by project assistance to municipalities and communities program with a contract duration of 5 years. Key services requested through this RFP are plant and maintain 115 native trees using the right tree, right place strategy, conduct annual maintenance, including watering and pruning for 1 year, and perform maintenance of town-owned trees, including pruning and removal, offer services to the resident at the same rates. And during the process, we have received 10 proposals. We are at the town now reviewing those proposals and plan to present to the mayor and council at the next meeting, which is on April 29th, for the mayor and council approval and to sign a contract with the selected contractor. Any questions?
Thank you, Numan. Questions for Numan from council? Any questions or comments from members of the public? So if I may ask a question, the right tree, right place strategy, that will ensure that some of the things that have happened in the past where trees that are going to eventually interfere with power lines are not planted below power lines, is that correct?
Yes, I believe so. And ivy or if you want to.
Laverne, that is correct, sir. Yes.
Okay.
To avoid that situation moving forward.
Okay. And I know that the county didn't come through with our street tree data by last week. Have we gotten any indications of when that might happen?
No, but I did get confirmation earlier today that the consultant will be available on the 29th to do the presentation. I've asked him for the second time for confirmation that we'll have the tree inventory data and management plan before that meeting, or at least as part of the council packet. I expect an answer tomorrow.
Okay, that's great. Is there any possibility that some of the trees that were in the past not planted in the right place could be moved under this contract, or is that would that be separate?
It would have to be separate. It wasn't included as part of the scope of work for this solicitation.
Okay, I don't.
And I expect a lot of them are larger trees, and so cost and just difficulty is probably.
Right, I was going to say I didn't think it was more than a couple of trees, but it would be nice to rescue them if possible and get some better trees planted there.
Yeah.
And just one tree in particular. There's a tree that had an interaction with a car near the corner of Tuckerman and Lafayette several years ago, and it sort of tilted over at 30 or 40 degrees off vertical. And is that going to be something going to happen with that tree? I've had a couple of residents ask me about it.
I'd be curious to see how it was evaluated in the survey. I can inquire about that tree specifically, even before we get the data.
Okay, fantastic.
I'll pass it on.
Thank you very much. Any additional council questions or comments, or public questions or comments on this? This is fantastic news as far as I'm concerned. We got 10 responses, so that's good.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. That brings us to our last item on the agenda, on the business part of the agenda. Multifamily license fees.
Director Charlton, if you can share with the mayor and council.
I would be happy to. Good evening, Mayor and Council. The Office of Neighborhood Services generates revenue by collecting revenue for license fees for their multifamily and single family and other license fees. The town staff had noticed through a comprehensive review that the cost of our inspections had grown more quickly than the rate that we were charging for those license fees. So we did a review of other municipalities in the area to see what they were charging for their licensing fees, and we found that we were below the median rate. And so staff are proposing that we move towards that median rate of $125 per unit from $115 per unit to close that gap to cover the cost of actually conducting those inspections for those licenses. And staff are working with the attorney, our town attorney, Fred Sussman, to draft the necessary legislation related to the increase. And we will have those at a upcoming meeting. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Director Chilton. Council members, any questions? Are there any questions from members of the public? No, Councilmember Lingua, you're unmuted. Go ahead.
Yes, I am. Thank you very much, Mr. Chelton. Regarding what you're looking at for an increase, about what is, I guess what I'm trying to ask in a roundabout way is about, so we're trying to push toward affordability within the town, and that we are just bringing up the license fee up to what's being asked of in the area by other municipalities. Do we know about what that is going to, how much of a burden that's going to be on families living there?
So the proposed increase for the multifamily license fee is about $10, an increase of about $10 per unit.
Okay.
And that's an annual fee. And so in general, I guess if the landlord were to pass that entire cost off onto the tenant, that'd be less than $1 per month.
All right. So this is just really nominal.
Yes.
Okay.
I can comment, Councilmember Lingua, that many of the landlords have increased their rents by well over $1 per month over the last few years.
Yeah.
Perhaps as much as 100 times that. So this is
True. This is nominal. All right.
And Mr. Mayor, can I add something?
Please.
The goal, if you will, is to, since we are delivering a service, is to come closer to that service being covered. So even with this increase, there's still general fund contributions to neighborhood services and their work. Mr. Chelton, do you have a revised percentage of the work that's covered by our fees, even with this increase?
With this increase, it was 79%, and we were hoping that we'd get a few more percent from some of our increased efforts and efficiencies that we're adopting with the neighborhood services team to hopefully increase it to at least 85, and if we're lucky, 90%. But yes, there is still some percentage left over from the general revenue.
And kind of as a best practice, Mr. Mayor, from my experience, you on these types of programs, you want to hit somewhere between 85% and 115%, because your numbers are in flux, and so that's kind of the target area. And even with this increase, we'll be below that. So it's a reasonable fee for service.
Understood. And this is just for the routine, this is just funding the routine inspections and not the emergency inspections that may occur from time to time.
Yes, sir.
That's correct.
So if we wanted to include those in the calculation, then it would be even lower because those costs are not covered by this fee. But they are effectively verifying that there hasn't been some drift away from maintaining the required standards. Okay, any additional council questions or comments for Director Shelton or Town Manager Lustician on this? Okay. Are there any other items of business that anyone wants to do this evening? Seeing none, I'll call for someone to make a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Seconded.
Motion by Councilmember Inyang, seconded by Councilmember Foe. This motion is neither debated nor discussed. I'll move immediately to a roll call vote. Councilmember Smith,
Aye.
Councilmember Foe,
Aye.
Councilmember Lingua,
Aye.
Councilmember Inyang,
Aye.
and I abstain. The motion passes 4-0. We are adjourned at 9:47 p.m. Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.